So we have Kier Bjorgum, a flight nurse, with us. And Kier, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Kier, how long have you been doing this as a flight nurse?
Flight nurse has been with Stars for 10 years.
Before that, of course, as I have learned in all of the conversations, you come to the table with a lot of experience. Where did nursing start for you?
So nursing started for me in Edmonton at the Royal Alec. As soon as I finished nursing school, I went straight into Emerge. And I was there for a number of years, and then we moved to Calgary, and I was at the Foothills Emerge at their Level 1 center for a number of years. And then it was through working at both those centers that I actually heard about this organization and worked with some of the colleagues that I can call colleagues now. Yeah. And at the time, I was, it looked like our family was going to be moving out to Winnipeg, and some of the colleagues I was working with said, hey, we're just starting up a base in Winnipeg, and you'd be a great asset to come along. And so I applied, and here we are.
But there's a big jump to getting into a confined space, an allowed helicopter, going to some of the most devastating scenes potentially. What made you want to do this with Stars?
Well, it's kind of the pinnacle of our career, unless you go into something like being a nurse practitioner. But then as a nurse practitioner, you kind of get funneled into a very narrow aspect. And in nursing, that sort of always happens. Like if you want to do central lines, then you become the central line nurse in the hospital, and you don't really get to do anything else, or you know, depending on which areas. But under Stars, you can increase your scope of practice, still underneath the nursing scope of practice, but do it all. So we can put in like central lines and stuff like that. We can do everything that's under the scope of practice. And it also, it was something different. Like after doing like close to about 10 years of Emerge, it was like, I need something. I was looking for something a little different in my career, and Stars was that next step. You can go out and be on the front lines instead of waiting for people to come to you. You can get to them. And yeah, just so the increased practice and meeting and caring for new people in a different way just sounded really appealing to me.
We want to raise money today to let you continue to do what you do, but getting an insight into what that is. So what is that relationship like? Are there certain roles that you take, or do you interchange, or what does it look like? Can you even put your finger on that, or is it vastly different from case to case?
We do come from vastly different backgrounds, I guess, in training, but with Stars, we have the same training. So in the end, we actually could assume each other's roles, and we have confidence in working with each other that we could do that. However, it usually ends up being the best person for the best place in the job. For example, our paramedic counterparts have years and years of securing airways before coming to Stars. And so even though we all go through the same training, they're probably the best person to put forward for when it comes time to putting a tube in down somebody's throat into their airway. I could do it. We have time in the OR, and we do lots of simulation practice, but they will have more hands-on experience, so they're probably the best one to do it. Similarly, we run drugs and pumps all the time in the hospital. So if I go for an inter-facility transfer where someone's really medically complicated and they're running 6 or 7 infusions, I'll already inherently, just because it's the nature of my job, know which infusions can kind of go mix with which, how to kind of run them, and titrate them effectively. So I will usually be on medication administration and things like that. Our paramedic counterparts could do it too, but they might be more task saturated. So it just ends up, you kind of do separate out, but we do still cross train.
And I love the humility of that in terms of how much expertise you each have, and how you say you could each do that, but there's this, but that's the essence of team, right? Do you recall a time where you saw a patient on the scene and you said, whew, if we save this one, it's going to be amazing, and then the result was a positive one? Do you, or is that even more common than we would think?
It's super interesting. There have been quite a few times where you do everything, you throw all the entire book at the person because they are that sick, and you're like, I just don't think this person's going to pull through, and then they come walking through the door. And it's the most amazing and incredible feeling to be like, I just don't see how, but somehow they miraculously pulled through. Everything was timely intervention. It had all the right services that they got afterwards at the hospital and rehabilitation, whatever, and it all just meshed together, and they pulled through, and have been surprised again and again, pleasantly surprised. And so and it's super rewarding. At the hospital, especially from an Emerge background, we don't get to see a lot of our patients that we they usually go on up into ICU or somewhere else, and we just never really hear back from them. Or if a letter does come in, it's kind of pinned up to a board, and maybe it doesn't get filtered down through management. But here, we actually get to meet a lot of our patients and face to face, and it's just super, super rewarding, and just reinforces why we do this.
I know you've done this for a number of years, so there must be many stories, but do you have a special memory of a patient who maybe came back, or maybe you had contact with, who said, you know, if it weren't for you guys, right, the timeliness or the expertise or the, you know, whatever it was, the location, the only way that they would be alive today is because of STARS?
Yeah, like we had a gal out in rural Manitoba, and I'm not really familiar with the community because we fly all over it, so I can't remember the exact community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might have been by close to Grenfell, I think, if I'm recalling it correctly. But it was a gal. She was riding her bike. I think she was about 10 years old at the time, and a vehicle came by and just clipped her. I guess she was, the mirror of the van was sticking out, and it smoked her in the back of the head, and she sustained a collapsed skull, and she was out cold. So we went there, and but we had to intubate her. We had to. Sorry for getting a call. So.
And there's the alarm. There's the alarm. Kier, go do what you do best.
Okay.
Let me shake your hand. I know
Absolutely.
it's going to do some great work right now.